Hey there, welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. It's Dr. Sarah here, and today I'm chatting with Louise Hartland. She's sharing with us her journey through infertility and pregnancy loss, and finally sharing her pregnancy journey and her birth story of her beautiful baby daughter, Coco. Louise actually took our online prenatal course, and she references it a few times in the podcast. For those who don't know, we've got an online prenatal masterclass that takes you from pregnancy through to postpartum. If you're interested in learning more, head on over to our website, www.shefoundhealth.ca/masterclass. Hope to see you there. We'll get started with the podcast right after this message.
Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. We are Sarah and Alicia, two doctor moms who are creating a community rich with high quality information to support people through the journey from pregnancy to parenthood.
Our goal is to empower with knowledge and decrease the anxieties during this time in our lives. We cover topics from fertility through the 4th trimester, with the odd birth story sprinkled in.
Come join us on Instagram or Facebook at she.found.motherhood or check us out on our website at www.shefoundhealth.ca.
Some of these podcasts have been sponsored, which allows us to continue putting out free, amazing content. But don't worry, this won't affect our advice or recommendations, and we only partner with companies we know and trust, or have come highly recommended to us by you, our listeners.
She Found Health is meant for general medical information only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The information you hear does not apply to every situation. If you have questions or if you've received different advice, please contact your healthcare provider. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The views expressed by She Found Motherhood and our guests are not representative of any institution with which we are affiliated.
Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. Today we have Louise, who is here to share with us about her pregnancy and birth story. So Louise, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. So I'm just going to open it up to you to start telling us wherever you feel comfortable starting in your sort of journey, to achieve pregnancy, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah. So my husband and I met kind of later in life. We both had been married before, and neither of us have had children in previous relationships. But soon after we met, we were like, okay, yeah, this is happening. We want to do this. And we both also said, we also want to have children. That was when I was, 38 was when we started to try. So the fall of 2017. And I just, assumed it would happen kind of easily, read the stats and maybe after 3 months or something. But, you go on birth control 20 years ago and you are doing everything in your power not to get pregnant. And then when you come off the birth control, kind of expect that it's just going to happen. And month after month, disappointment. And, there's my period again. It's hard. It's reading up on everything I possibly could. I was trying to maybe change my behavior a little bit and okay, am I eating the right things? Am I taking the right vitamins? Started going to acupuncture, just kind of doing everything to kind of prep my body and get me ready. And because I was 38, I was able to have that conversation with my family doctor pretty early, just say, this is what we want to do. So it's 6 months of trying. She was able to refer us to the fertility clinic.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that resource was there, both having such a supportive family doctor as well as having the fertility clinic. And unfortunately, infertility is a big problem and a lot of people have it. We get the referral and it's okay, you have to wait 8 months to see the doctor.
Yeah, that's so long when you're 38 and you're wanting to have a baby.
Yeah. And you really think every month, I know. You're just visualizing this bucket of eggs and every month they're disappearing and you're getting fewer and fewer every month. But so we finally were able to see the doctor in November of 2018. And he was just got my blood work done, had a look at my eggs. My egg count was okay, not great, obviously, 38, but he did get ultrasound, said everything looks okay. But my big advice to you is stop it. Stop checking your temperature. Stop monitoring things. Stop using your apps to track your cycle. Just go home, get drunk, watch a movie, have sex, and get pregnant.
Yeah, just
Like,
have sex for fun. Yeah.
yeah, like let go of everything. And we did that. And less than a month later, pregnant. Just like, what? How did this happen? Just like realized I was a couple of days late in my cycle in December and decided to do a pregnancy test. And we both like didn't believe it. It was one of those cheap ones you get on Amazon.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're going to the drugstore. Like this isn't legit.
That's
Yeah.
crazy, Louise. I've got some little chills here.
Yeah. So it was just like, boom. Okay. Like this is happening. And I didn't sleep that night. And most of the nights after that, like just so excited. And, you're fantasizing about how are you going to tell your family? Okay, it's Christmas. So like, we're not going to tell them right away, but maybe for Mother's Day or, like something like that, or my husband's birthday, or you want to mark the occasion and you've thought about this your entire life, or I had at least, like, how do I announce it to my family? Like, I want this to be really special and exciting. And so the first ultrasound we had was in early January, like I think the first week of January, and we got to see the baby and hear the heartbeat, and it was incredible. And got to take the pictures home and just fell in love and like fully went down the rabbit hole, bought all the books and read all the blogs, and doing all of those things that you do when you're excited for your first pregnancy. And the doctor did say at that time, like I was 7 weeks, and the doctor did say looked a little small, but I was just like, well, maybe I ovulated late.
Yeah.
And who knows? But then like a week later, so I was 8 weeks, I started getting some cramping.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was, I had like a bubbly and I have like gas pain or something like that. I went to the washroom and it was just all blood. And yeah, it was devastating. It was crippling. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I just remember sitting there and trying to call my husband, and he was listening to music really loudly in the kitchen, and I like didn't want to get up, and I was just a mess and crushed, obviously. And because it's at night, you can't get a hold of anybody. Luckily, like my best friend's a doctor, so I called her, and I know she was able to kind of talk me through it. And I called and left a message at the fertility clinic and was able to go in first thing in the morning, and they confirmed there was no heartbeat. So it was really hard to see. We'd just seen the baby in there with a heartbeat, and then we go and the baby's still there, but there's no sign of life. So it's a loss that it can't really explain. It's so deep, and people say like, oh well, you were only 8 weeks, so didn't know the baby, but it's something that's so deep inside of you. It just rocked me to my core. So we were given some options at that point, like how we wanted to move forward. And there's DNC, which is kind of more of an invasive option. And the doctor actually recommended that we didn't go that route because of my age, and that it can do some damage to your uterine lining. Just if we were going to try and get pregnant again, that it would probably be best to try and either let it pass naturally or to take some drugs that would help like move things along. So we decided to go with the drugs. I just couldn't handle the thought of the baby still inside me. And it was really hard. Then eventually, we went away actually that day. We were supposed to go to Mount Washington. It was my 40th birthday. And so we went up to Mount Washington, and I was going to take the drugs when we got back. And my 40th birthday, I passed the baby. It was rotten. It was terrible, but I had all my family around me, and everybody was like super supportive, and just, trying to look at all sides of the experience. And, people say like, at least you were able to get pregnant. That's yes. Yeah, I was. But it doesn't mean I'm going to get pregnant again.
I know.
And it also doesn't mean that you don't worry as the person who lost the pregnancy that you, number one, was that workout that I did that a little bit harder than I like should have worked out? Was that the reason? Like, was it the massage I got that maybe like triggered something? Or, you know, what was it that I did? And you always blame yourself. So that was really hard. So anyway, we came home after that, and I still took the drugs just to make sure that like everything was out of my system. I find it's really hard because you go to the drugstore to pick up a prescription that says abortion on it, like abortion medication. And when you've lost a baby and the last thing you ever would want is to abort a pregnancy, to have to do that and take a drug like that is just cruel. Like, it was really, really hard. But I took the drugs, and I read a bunch of terrible things online about it.
Oh yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Right?
How painful it can be, and it was. I had bad cramps, a lot of bleeding, but and I have a friend who did have one of those terrible experiences where it was like full on labor almost. Yeah, it's traumatic enough already, but to go through all of that. And of course too, I'm A negative blood type, so I had to get a RhoGAM shot. And I was sent to the hospital to get it, and they sent me to the ambulatory unit where it was like all these pregnant women. And I'm sitting there like, I just lost a baby and I have to get the shot so that my body doesn't reject the next baby that I'm hopefully going to have. So,
you know, you raised so many points about how the system is not set up to emotionally support people going through this, right? We've got the medications, we've got the systems in place to make sure medically everything goes well, but emotionally,
you feel really alone. And I did feel supported medically, and I did feel like, I was getting the drugs I needed. I was getting, that kind of level of support, but there's that other side of it that is, I would almost say, more important, especially if you're trying to give somebody the courage to keep trying and to fight through it and come back and know that if they have to go through this again, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I have to say, as someone who's never experienced a pregnancy loss, I can't understand what you've been through and what someone is going through. And I think what I've learned through my years of supporting people is that you have to grieve this loss, and it is a child, because you're not just grieving the loss of, yes, it is a very early pregnancy, and yes, it was, barely a collection of cells, some might say, but you envisioned this, right? You had the books, you're probably thinking of names if you were like me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's the loss of what was to be, right? It's not just the loss of that pregnancy, but how you saw things going with your life, right? That you have to let go and grieve.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was really hard to, just kind of let that go and then try and no, I just need to try again.
I know.
And, like I kept a journal through everything, and that was kind of my way of honoring my experience. I look back on it from time to time, and obviously I looked back on it before doing this, and it was just like, wow, like that was huge. That was a big thing that we went through to get where we are today.
Yeah.
And after that pregnancy loss, we went back to the fertility clinic, and our doctor suggested we try letrozole, which stimulates ovulation. And after my next cycle had kind of gone through, and so we did that. I remember going in to see my family doctor, and I'm a patient at your clinic, Grow Health, which is, supports a lot of women throughout their pregnancies. And I remember my doctor, Jen, saying to me, nobody talks about it, Louise, but you go out there into the waiting room, and if you ask, more than half of those women out there will tell you that they've had a pregnancy loss.
Yeah.
Because I just felt so isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really alone. Even my friends who had miscarriages before, I don't know, it's just such a lonely experience.
Yeah, and it is, she's right, it's so common, but we don't share, right? We hide it, or we, we feel embarrassed, we feel to blame.
Absolutely.
Like so many things in women's health, right? We need to normalize it and we need to talk about it more.
Mm-hmm. So after that pregnancy and that 1 month long wait, started the letrozole, I found out I was pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
That was the day also that we found out the conditions were being removed on our house. So it was like this big, exciting day, like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. We're getting a house.
Yeah.
This is amazing. But it was different this time for me. Like I was instantly scared.
Yeah.
I didn't let myself take any of those week by week photos. I didn't read anything. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to let my mind go there. I didn't want to get attached to the baby. And I felt really, really torn up about that. That was really upsetting to me because I was like, if this baby does survive, like I'm robbing them of that, or I'm robbing myself and my husband of that. I just couldn't at that point. It was too soon. We went for our first ultrasound at 6 weeks. The doctor said that it, again, was small, and asked us to come back in a week to kind of check on size and development and all that. And then the next week we went in, and again, they said, there's no heartbeat. So your pregnancy isn't going to be viable. And like, let's just give it a week and see how things go. And then if it hasn't passed on its own, or you haven't started to miscarry, then we can figure out how we're going to move things along for you. So like a week later, so this is like, so I'm 7.5 weeks at this point. We go in for the ultrasound and the doctor found a heartbeat. Yeah. It was like this.
Sorry, we're on video, so I'm like pausing and staring.
Yeah.
I forget that we're also podcasting. What?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Total roller coaster.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine how that would have felt.
Yeah. So we'd already told our families, like, we were pregnant again. We lost the baby again. And now, oh wait, actually the baby looks good, and stay hopeful, like come back in a week, and week and a half or so, and like just called our families and we're like, just kidding, like we're having a baby still. Yeah. And then we went back at 9 weeks for another ultrasound, and this time they said that the baby was too small and the heart was too weak, but the baby was still alive. But
oh my God,
they just were like, it's not going to make it. We don't know when it's going to pass, but the heart's going to stop beating. It could be in a day, it could be in a week, it could be in months, but it's not going to survive. So trying to wrap your head around that too. Am I going to be carrying this baby for months that is not going to survive? And it was, you think that the first one was like as bad as it's going to get, and then this happens. And we were supposed to go on our honeymoon 2 weeks after that too, so I was like worried about that. And then the day that we found out that like the pregnancy wasn't going to be viable, we also got the keys to our new house. And so I have this picture of me on Instagram, like, here we are, new homeowners, and like all I can see is this pain in my eyes. Like, I wanted to be happy, like, for our realtor. I didn't want him to think that we weren't grateful, and like, it's that shame again that comes in, right? It's that, like, keep a brave face on, like, you don't want to talk about it. It's all internalized, and yeah, it was just a terrible experience, but we just had to continue on. We went back in the next week for another ultrasound because they were just like, just keep coming back and we'll just check to see how the baby's doing.
And you weren't having any bleeding, hey?
No bleeding, no. And so at 10 weeks we went in, there was no heartbeat. And I remember audibly saying, oh, thank God. And then being like, what did I just say?
Yeah.
How could I have just said that?
Yeah.
I'm grateful that my baby isn't.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's so complex, right? The emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just couldn't imagine carrying the baby any longer. And I knew that for me, like emotionally, it was going to be better if it happened sooner rather than later. But just that guilt of that moment just kind of stuck with me.
Right? Oh,
Yeah.
we're so hard on ourselves too, right?
I know. Again, I went with the drug route, and I took a different cocktail of drugs, but basically had the same result. And it was just, less blood, kind of more pain. I took tramadol this time and just kind of knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And then just we went on our honeymoon and tried to kind of put on a happy face again and just enjoy it. And I was like, hey, we're in France. I can drink wine and I can have cheese. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And then when we came back, we just kept trying.
Yeah.
And nothing, I was still taking the letrozole. Nothing was happening. And so after 3 months, we just said, okay, it's time to take like a bit more of an aggressive approach.
Yeah.
And we talked to our doctor at the fertility clinic about doing IUI, intrauterine insemination.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go in every day for a couple of weeks for blood work.
Wow.
Just to see how my ovaries were responding to the medication, and when I was going to ovulate. And it was really hard because like those ovulation test strips have never ever worked for me. Yeah, and even the blood work doesn't work for me. Like my hormone level never surged, so the only way for them ever to tell when I was going to ovulate was through transvaginal ultrasound.
Oh, yeah, it's so invasive, hey?
Yeah, you get really used to having things.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Things that you just, here we go again.
Yeah. When it looked like, my body had kind of started accepting the drugs, I think I had like 3 follicles around day 18 of my cycle. And then they gave me a shot to kind of make ovulation happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in, it's for the procedure. Ryan had to go in early.
Mm-hmm.
He had to like deposit his
sample.
in the morning. And then they wash the sperm and get the good ones out. And then it's kind of like lie on a table. It's like having a pap. Like here's a speculum, and then put a catheter in, and in goes the sperm. Mm-hmm. And you hope that it's kind of in the right place at the right time. And that was that. Just kind of like waited and nothing. Nothing. Got my period again. And we tried it again, and same thing. No more luck. And I just had this feeling like going through the IUI process. I was like, I just feel like it's like way too up to chance.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I just was like, I want them to like look at my egg and be like, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, we're going to put this egg back in you.
Yeah.
So we decided to make that next step to IVF pretty quickly. Yeah. And I mean,
how long has this been since you guys had started trying? Like you said, the fall of 2017, right?
Yeah. So this was fall of 2019. So it was 2.
Oh my gosh, 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, really, in the scheme of things, it's not that long. Like now that I like hear other stories of women who are dealing with this.
For like 10 years, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just, 2 miscarriages. I feel fortunate that I was able to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And carry a baby to term. And, now I'm blessed with a beautiful daughter. But it took a long time, and it took a lot of work. And I know it takes so much longer for other people. So, but yeah, and we just decided to go IVF. It's like obviously way more expensive, but all of the drugs were covered under our health plan. So it was just kind of like the procedure costs. So we were very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that plan.
Yeah, totally right. Then it was just like, getting used to that drug protocol. No exercising, no doing anything strenuous. at all for 2 weeks out of the month or whatever. And that was happening for the months before too. But yeah, I had to go in and like learn how to inject myself in the stomach with these injectable drugs, and taking estrogen all the time and rubbing myself with testosterone and just like all these different things that
It's quite a cocktail. Yeah.
It is. I remember going over dinner with a girlfriend, and she had gone through IVF, and she like injected me in the bathroom at Tapa Bar in Victoria. Because it was just like, oh, it's 7:00. I got to do this. Let's go. We were going in for monitoring to like check to see how my ovaries were responding to the drugs. And the doctor turned to me and was like, this is not good. Your body's not responding. This is like the strongest protocol we can give you, and your body is not responding to the drugs. And it was just like another kick in the teeth. Because our drugs were covered, we just said, let's just keep going. Let's just keep trying and see if like eventually, like maybe my body's just taking a little bit longer. And sure enough, after like another week of doing the injections, my body started to react better. Not great. Not like, the people that you hear who have like 16 eggs, but better. So when we went in for the retrieval, which was like a crazy experience in itself, fentanyl was insane. We thought we had 9 follicles, and they were able to retrieve 3 eggs. Then like the next day after the egg retrieval, they called and said only 1 egg made it. Only 1 embryo made it through the night. So the best chance for an embryo to survive is inside. So instead of waiting the normal like 3 to 5 days to put the egg back in, we want to put it back in you tomorrow.
Wow.
So it was a quick turnaround, and when we went to the clinic, they showed us the embryo, and they were like, it is a perfect grade 1 4-cell embryo. Like, this is the best embryo you could possibly ask for. I just like bawled. It was just like all this pent up emotion and stress, and I was just like, that was the only thing that kind of gave me hope in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I had the egg the embryo put back in, and we could watch it on the screen, and they put it in the uterus, and it was so cool to see. And then just had to wait. And that 2 weeks was the hardest 2 weeks of my pregnancy journey, I would say. I went to a really dark place. I was really depressed. I was really sure it wasn't going to work. And then it was like, can I go through this again?
Yeah.
Do I want to go through this again? And I tried, like, I was doing all my visualization, like picturing the cells doubling, picturing the implantation, like doing all of those things, and took a week off work, just like turned all social media off my phone, listened to classical music, like doing everything to just like stay as zen as possible. And I was sure it wasn't happening. It didn't feel like my pregnancies before.
Yeah.
And I felt crampy, and I was like getting my period. And then on the day that I had to go for my blood work, to confirm if I was pregnant or not, I think I'm one of very few people who didn't pee on a stick. Like, I think there's a lot of women that I've talked to who've gone through this who are just like, I'm not waiting for the test, I'm doing my own.
Yeah.
I didn't. I waited for the blood work, and I was so nervous. I remember like sitting down with Ryan in front of the computer and showing him my old tests. I was like, this is what a positive pregnancy like blood work is going to look like. And this is what a negative one is going to look like. So this is what we're going to see. And so don't get excited because this number isn't going to be very high.
Yeah.
And then clicking on the new file and opening it up and just like could not believe it. Number like way higher than it had ever been with the other pregnancies. I was shocked. Like, oh my God, we're pregnant. Like what is it? Like what's happening?
Yeah.
I just totally didn't believe it. So, it was shocking and exciting. And I was like super trepidatious and of course, as you would be.
Yeah.
But then I said from that moment, I was like, I am going to embrace this because whatever happens on either side, I want to know that I like put my full heart into it. And I want this baby to know that they were loved from the start, no matter what. So yeah, that was that. And that was, gosh, 6 months ago, I had a baby girl. So
that was Coco.
That was Coco.
Oh my God.
My little Coco. Yeah.
So how did the pregnancy go?
Pregnancy was easy.
Right? So
yeah. I joked with our obstetrician about that because he was the one who checked me like for my kind of like stress test before we had her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I feel like this is just like payback for the baloney we had to go through to get here. Like I've just had a really easy pregnancy. I did have a lot of kind of back pain and hip pain in the last trimester, but I was like doing, 10K every day basically until the night before we walked like 7K along Dallas Road. Just stayed active and felt great. Felt really good.
Wow, that's so good. So how did birth go? Tell us about your birth and how you went to labor and all that stuff. I know a little bit.
Yeah. Well, because of my age, I was put on the induction list for my due date. And so I was due on July 19th. I was nervous because I knew that the induction, like our obstetrician was like, I want you to get in as soon as you possibly can and get this baby out just for your age and like safety's sake for the baby. And I knew there was a really long wait for actually having the induction done. So I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be like another 5 days. And like, is that safe for the baby? So I go to bed that night thinking like, what's going to happen? Am I going to get called tomorrow? Probably not. Just, whatever. 2:00 in the morning, I wake up and I'm like, oh, that's weird and uncomfortable. So it's my due date. I'm feeling kind of crampy. And then I decide to like go to the bathroom, download a contraction counter app. And then I start like marking it, like just tracking it. And then realize that there's a pattern.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of getting a little bit stronger. Ryan's sleeping beside me in bed. I'm like, I'm not waking this guy up. It's like 2 a.m. If it is what I think it is, there's going to be a long day ahead of us.
Yeah.
7 o'clock rolls around in the morning and he's like, oh, you're awake. And I was like, yeah, I'm having contractions. It's like, what? But yeah, I ended up calling the doctor on call, just because like the timing of them was kind of all over the place. At that point, they were like 6 minutes apart, but some were like 3 minutes apart. And I just wasn't sure. So they said, come into the hospital. We'll just check you out. I could tell as soon as I got there, like the nurses were looking at me like, you are standing and you do not look like you're in pain. Like, get out of here.
That to me when I went in and had my third baby like 3 hours later.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah. Anyway, went in, got checked. Sick. Yeah, everything was okay. I was like not really dilated at all. So the doctor offered me some morphine and some, what did she give me for nausea? I'm trying
Gravel?
Oh yeah, it was gravel. Yeah. Just to like get a little bit of sleep.
Yeah, because you were really up. Had you been up since 2?
I've been up since 2. Yeah. And so that was like 9:30 in the morning. And she's like, you're going to probably come back in a few hours. Just go home, relax, and then come
Relax.
back when things are more, relax.
Relax in quotations. Yeah.
Eat something.
Yeah.
And come back when things are more intense. So came home, was able to get a little bit of sleep on the couch. And then all of a sudden my water broke when I was on the couch. And then things really, I was like, oh, this is what they mean, that it gets more intense.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so weird, right? When you haven't, like, going into labor is such a weird experience and so different, right? You're
Yeah.
like,
And I thought, I'm like, I have a high pain threshold. Like, maybe this is it.
and it is for some people.
Yeah. Not for me. Anyway. So we stayed home for a little bit more and like just tried to wait as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The timing was still really weird. Like the contractions were all over the place. But then when I needed to go to the hospital was when I had that like, oh, I'm lying on the bathroom floor moment.
Yeah.
That I've heard about so many times. Like, oh, okay. Also, this is the time we're really gonna go. And that was a very uncomfortable drive, 8-minute drive to the hospital.
I know that drive.
Yeah. Yes.
That's an uncomfortable way to labor, like in the car holding on.
Totally. Yeah.
I know.
Awful. So then it was like early afternoon by the time we got back there.
Mm-hmm.
And thing like the again wasn't really moving along so much. I was probably 3 or 4 centimeters dilated. Then they gave me something to kind of like move things along a little bit quicker.
Oxytocin, probably.
Yeah, it was oxytocin.
And I didn't ask you, but had you guys, because I know you did our prenatal course.
Yes.
Did you have like an idea around like how you wanted things to go, you know, in terms of your birth and how you thought it would look?
Yeah, and thank goodness we did that course because it seriously got us ready for what to expect. Like when we got to the hospital, as well as like leading up to it, and I had like a better idea and felt like way more grounded about everything.
Oh, good.
And part of that process was creating the birth plan.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we did because we needed it. And like everything in the birth plan was whatever is best for the baby, whatever is best for the baby. You know, if I need drugs, I will take drugs. Yeah. Whatever is best for the baby. And so when we got to that point where, you know, things were heating up and we took the oxy and it sounds like I'm doing like street drugs.
Oh, I know, right? Oxytocin, not OxyContin.
Yes.
Everyone in this podcast knows you're talking about oxytocin.
Good.
We call it Oxy too. It's okay.
Great. So we took that and like still same thing. Not much was going on. I was like so happy because this of course is also happening during COVID, but the gas was allowed at that point to just come back. And so I was like huffing on the gas and the doctor came in and was like, "Are you interested in an epidural?" And my hand, I was, yes, I am.
My language, I know.
I had a friend who had a baby 3 days before and wasn't able to get an epidural because there was a shortage of nurses around. And I was like, I'm not losing this opportunity. If this is my only chance, I am taking this chance.
Oh, that would be me, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So half an hour later, got the epidural, and I remember saying to the anesthesiologist, I was like, why would anyone do this without these drugs? Like, yeah.
And some people, their labors are just so different, right?
Yeah.
But not me.
Yeah. And apparently I'm not strong like a bull, like I thought I was. So
that's not true.
But I was very, very grateful to have all of those things, especially because the labor got more difficult. So it was, you know, I was still having contractions 6 minutes apart, but they were lasting for 4 minutes at a time.
God.
Yeah. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. And
what are you doing in there?
I know, really. I had to have a word when she came out.
Yeah.
But it was very uncomfortable for sure. And then.
And how was she doing with a 4-minute contraction? She was doing okay?
Well, the OB was a little bit concerned. She started coming in. They started calling in just to see like what was going on and figure out like, do we need to do anything here? And she was okay.
Mhm.
And then the obstetrician came in eventually and said, look, she's not moving. Like, she's moving inside you, but she's not coming down the birth canal. You're not, you're 6.5 centimeters, but there hasn't been enough progress. Like, we can let you keep trying for 3 hours if you want to. But I feel like what's best for the baby is for you to consider having an emergency cesarean.
And how did that feel when they said that to you?
I at the moment I was like, okay. They said, let us walk out of the room and we'll come back and we'll check in with you. You and Ryan can have a conversation. It was literally like, I feel like they were out of the room for like 30 seconds. Like, it was like, you need to make up your mind.
Yeah. We'll give you a few minutes. We're back now. Yeah.
But that's when Ryan and I looked at each other and said, our birth plan was do what's best for the baby. Like, yes. And we had always said that. And I had always said, I'm not going to shy away from doing one thing or another. At that point, like when they said, we're going to give you an emergency C-section, I cried.
Of course.
And it surprised me because I was like, I think before I was just like, boom, 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 this is what we're going to do. And I never had my heart set on a vaginal birth. Like, I knew whatever's best for babe. Right. But yeah, it was all of a sudden scary. And I had an amazing nurse who comforted me through it and told me it was going to be okay. And it was all right that I was scared. I'm doing what was best for the baby. And then the obstetrician was like, so if things move along by the time we can get you into the ER, then you can try it vaginally. But it was like, oh, we're going to get you in 20 minutes. So it was like pretty quick. Yeah. There was no movement happening. And then we, it just all happened so quickly. And it was like 11 o'clock on the 19th, her due date at that point. I was like, okay, are we going to have her on the 19th? Or are we going to have her on the 20th? Like, what's going to happen here? And then, there was a delay in the ER for, I think the anesthesiologist or something was stuck in a different surgery. And so it pushed us onto the 20th. And Coco was born just after midnight. So, but the funny thing is, like, she was born exactly like 6 months for me. So like, I'm like January 20th, she's July 20th. And my mom had the same thing happen. Like, she didn't have a C-section with me, but she was supposed to be induced on the night. Like, I was due on the 19th. Coco was due on the 19th. She was supposed to be induced. Didn't get induced. Went into spontaneous labor. Had the baby like the next day. Like,
crazy.
Yeah.
So many weird things in life, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So how did things go after your surgery?
Good. I mean, was
seeing her and hearing her cry, right? Is like,
oh my gosh. I just remember lying there behind the sheet. And I honestly don't think I really realized I was having a baby until I heard that cry for the first time. And I just started crying. And I was like, Ryan was up taking pictures, and the anesthesiologist like held my hand and he was like, that's your baby. And we decided for us, we wanted to wait and have a surprise.
Oh yeah. I didn't know what you were having.
No, we didn't know. So Ryan got to say,
we always hold them up.
Like, and he was like, it's a it's a girl. And so but he still says like that was like the best moment of his life, like being able to getting to do that. So
great. And it's so special for him, right? Because it can be really hard for the partner, like through this entire journey. It's you, right? And
totally,
it's hard on you and it's rewarding for you, and he stands by. But that's a really cool experience for him.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then just like knowing that she was healthy and holding her for the first time was surreal. And those first like couple days in the hospital were just bonkers. And oh man, what a ride.
Oh yeah, I do this. No one can see me, but I go, right? It's just like
Yeah.
mind blowing. Every time I round on someone with a new baby, I'm like, hey guys, right?
Yeah.
It's so mind blowing. Like nothing prepares you for it.
Nothing.
And you don't want to sound paternalistic or like patronizing when you're like, oh, you'll know, but you'll know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did you do, with your recovery from an emergency C-section, right? So you did labor and then you had a major surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I was super fortunate that Ryan had 6 weeks off.
No good.
And also COVID, so he's working from home.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was hard for sure. Like, I mean, I'm an active person and being told, like, yeah, you can't do anything for 6 weeks. You can't even drive a car.
Yeah.
So, it was hard for sure, and just seeing like your body try and heal and understanding too, like what that's going to do to you, like as far as your muscle strength and not being able to lift anything, like can't lift the car seat, can't do really anything. And COVID, so like not a lot of help around except our moms were able to come in, which was great. But yeah, I did okay. Everything has healed really well. I was sure to go to pelvic floor physio, and I had gone before Coco was born too, just to make sure everything was okay. And I healed up pretty well. So feeling fortunate for that too.
And how about breastfeeding? Do you mind talking about your breastfeeding?
Yeah, I have to say, like, when I was in hospital and the resident came in and said, do you want an appointment with a lactation consultant? I said yes.
Yeah.
And I suggest that anybody who has given that opportunity say yes. That is one thing that, like, one piece of advice, like never just like, oh, I'll be okay. Like, no, like put every tool you possibly can in that toolbox because you're going to need it.
Yeah.
And breastfeeding is so stressful. You question yourself constantly. I'm still doing it at 6 months. She latched pretty well, but Coco has reflux. So she was not happy ever when feeding. It was really hard. It's, really hard when your baby is like screaming at you when you're trying to feed them and you don't know what's wrong, and
it's stressful.
It was. And it just feels like you're like on all the time. Like, did the baby ever leave the boob? Like, no, not really.
Yeah. And do you know what? Something that really bothered me about breastfeeding was like, and my first was like huge struggle. I talk about it in my personal birth story, but the second and third was much easier. And the thing that annoyed me the most was like, you would feed your baby and they're full, like, and then you'd hand them off and then they're like, oh, they're fussy. They must be hungry. And you're like, I just effing fed them.
Yes.
What is it? Just give me a break. Just give me a break. Right?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
They're not hungry.
They're not hungry. There's something else. Okay. Just leave me alone.
But that's something that I feel like only you as the breastfeeding parent can know. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, the baby's hungry. And you're like, baby ain't hungry.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Totally. But it's so hard, right? Yeah, you're on all the time.
Yeah. And just questioning yourself all the time. Like, is the baby getting enough? Because you can't measure it. You don't know what they're doing. And like, I was pumping and like freezing, and we're trying to top her up because sometimes she'd take the bottle better than she'd take the boob at night because she's so fussy.
Yeah.
And eventually I got her on reflux meds and everything got so much better. Good. And I just stopped pumping because I was like, this is way too stressful. Like, I do not need to do this.
We put so much pressure on ourselves.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But yeah, everything's been great. Like, I can't believe like every day Ryan and I look at each other and say, we have a baby. Right? Like, how did this happen? We have a baby, and she's so amazing and we love her so much. Like, yeah, we love her so much.
That's so wonderful. So 3 questions we always like to ask everybody when they share a birth story. The first one is, what do you think, or what would you say was the hardest thing about becoming a new parent and that journey into new motherhood, new parenthood?
Well, I would say for me, the first 3 months
Mm-hmm.
were so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember also thinking, we worked so hard for this. Like, we wanted this baby so badly. And now I question if we should have had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that
Mm-hmm.
came into my mind often in that first few months,
Yeah.
because it was just rocks your world. There's nothing you can do to prepare for that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that's something people don't really talk about that much.
And then you feel guilty for thinking that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you feel like, am I the only one who feels this way?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you like say to your friends, did we do something wrong? Like, did we mess up? Should we not have had this child? And they're like, oh, I felt that way too. What? Like, why didn't you say something? But yeah, it just rocked us. It totally rocked us. Yeah. And like we always say too, like, maybe it's because we're a little bit older and we've experienced all these things in our life, and now we're like, oh my gosh, like, we're never going to be able to do that again. But no, I just think it's just one of those experiences, and until you're a parent, you don't really get that. Mm-hmm. But the exhaustion, like sleep deprivation, is a torture.
Yeah, sure.
For a reason.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
But yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say is the best part for you becoming a new mom?
Just having her, holding her,
mm-hmm.
laughing with her, seeing her change. Like, you know, she just turned 6 months, and I feel like every week she's doing something different. You know, like she had, my husband's favorite food is peanut butter. She had peanut butter for the first time yesterday.
How did it go?
She loved it. The smile on her face, and the smile on his face also made me very happy. So yeah, every day is just so fun and exhausting, but fun.
Yeah, that's so great. And how do you think becoming a mom will change you, you know, from here moving forward? Will you any, you know, career change, or, you know, just sort of change how you view life and how you?
Yeah, I think I think I've always been an empathetic person, but I think now it just brings that whole other layer of perspective for, you know, dealing with other parents or people who are going through challenging times in their lives, whether it is parenthood or something else. And I think it just puts a lot of perspective on things, like what truly is important.
Yeah.
And how can I support the people around me to get there? Because I want to support as many people as I can through this, because I feel like the support that I had was what made us get through those really hard times.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story. I don't think we talk about it enough, right? And you and I were sort of chatting about that even before we started recording.
Yeah. Yeah, it is something that we definitely need to talk more about, and, you know, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, your story's like so wonderful. What a happy ending. You're beautiful. Yeah. I can't wait you're going to have to show me a picture or something after.
Oh my goodness, of course.
I know, right? You'll just whip
all
out
the videos. Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Here's her eating yams. Here's her eating apples.
I know. God, my phone. So full of that. That and screenshots from our Instagram.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Louise, for chatting with us. And
thank you.
I look forward to meeting Coco in person someday when this freaking pandemic is behind us.
Oh my goodness, me too.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out our website at www.shefoundhealth.ca and to sign up for our community for weekly bump blasts. Make sure to check us out on Instagram or Facebook at she.found.motherhood, and head on over to your favorite podcast app and leave a review and a 5-star rating. If you enjoyed this podcast, take a pic of yourself listening to it and share it on social. Make sure to tag us on it so we know to keep making them.